Welcome to the Feminine Principle podcast, supporting women to let go of the ghosts from their past by exploring the hidden side of their female psyche with shamanic shadow work for women, with your host, Nicola Lucy. Hello ladies, and welcome to this episode of the Feminine Principle podcast, where today we are exploring self-worth and toxic words. And so the words that we use in our day-to-day lives with ourselves and others have the potential to empower and disempower. However, because we learn our language so early in life and we pick up words and phrases from those around us, it becomes so embedded in our subconscious and we don't actually realize what we're saying or how we're saying it. And so we have this hidden language communicated unconsciously because it is coming from the unconscious. And what happens is that we don't recognize the impact that the words and phrases that we're using to communicate to ourselves and others are actually reinforcing our wounding, trauma, and conditioning that we have been exposed to throughout our lives. And so in this moment, in this episode, I wish to share with you 3 words that make up a phrase. 3 simple words that on their own don't mean anything at all, but when brought together can have a profound impact on how we relate with ourselves and with others. And these 3 words are, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Do these 3 words sound familiar to you? I invite you to just take a moment just to listen and repeat these words to yourself, just to feel them. Saying them silently and feel the power of them as they hit your heart, as they are digested into your system. It doesn't matter. You see, we are no stranger to these words. As women, we've been using these words for centuries, passed down from mother to daughter, shared between women, between friends and colleagues on both a personal and a professional level, and spoken to the self over and over again. How many times a day, a week, a month, a year do we actually use those 3 words? It doesn't matter. And you see, these 3 words are so rooted in our sense of self-worth and the relationship that we have with our value as a human being and as a woman in today's world. Basically, what we're saying when we use these words is that we don't matter. Our emotions, our feelings, our needs and our boundaries don't matter. Our dreams, our hopes and our desires fundamentally don't matter. And so these 3 words, it doesn't matter, are powerful. And yet it's very sad at the same time that we can use these words over and over again without recognizing the impact that they're having on our self-worth. And we tend to use these words when something has happened, when something didn't quite work out as we expected. And they come out during a time when we are being consoled by somebody else or when we are consoling someone else. For example, we didn't get a promotion or a bonus, or a relationship fell apart, or a goal or a dream that we'd invested so much time and energy into didn't happen. And so in that moment, these words have been used as a token of comfort. I'm sure that you can remember a time where these words have been used with you, or you have used them with somebody else, where you have consoled somebody for not getting that job or a relationship falling apart, and you said to them, oh, it doesn't matter, it's okay, everything will work out, without really thinking about what we're saying or what we are receiving from somebody else. And what's actually happening, we're reinforcing a narrative that has been used time and time again to disempower women for centuries. It doesn't matter because fundamentally and invisibly we're saying we don't matter. And this is the narrative that we are reinforcing when we use it, consciously and unconsciously. And so in my own life, I really began to feel the power of these words at the beginning of this year. And one of my patterns is that with moving constantly from place to place, one thing that I really needed was space. I needed space in which to work, to meditate, to write, to really be in my own energy of creating my business. However, every time we moved, I completely dishonored and disrespected this need. In fact, I knew that I wanted it, but I could never listen to it. And so over and over again with every move, I kept saying to myself it didn't matter that I had no space to be in my own energy. But over time, what happened was that I started to get more and more claustrophobic, and my health started to suffer as a result because I was not listening to my own needs. I was actually disempowering myself every time I used those 3 words. And so at the beginning of the year, when we were on the brink of another move, I really heard myself saying those words. It doesn't matter. And for the first time, I really heard those words. And when I allowed them to sink in, I could really feel the power of them and really recognizing that, oh my goodness, this is what I've been saying to myself for years, all of my life. And that was really hurtful, that I could keep repeating those words to myself and really not own or value what I needed in my life. What I needed to be able to create, to manifest the life of my dreams, of my visions. And it was actually myself that was disempowering and stopping myself from manifesting what I needed. And what I then realized was that using these 3 words was not only visible in this area of my life, but it actually went through all areas of my life: physical, emotional, psychological, sexual, and financial. These 3 words have permeated every single aspect of my life, my existence, and then I could start to see how it had impacted my self-worth and my value. And so this was really a turning point for me, not only to recognize the power of the language that we use within ourselves and how our language is used unconsciously, but also what steps I could take to actually create a more harmonious relationship with the language that I use with myself and with others, so that I could create an environment of empowerment for myself and others and not disempowerment. And the more I sat with this and the more that I did my own shadow work around it, I started to understand and embody that it does matter. It does matter when something painful has happened or gone wrong, or something has deeply triggered us, because our emotional experience matters. How we are feeling matters. And being conditioned to ignore, suppress, and deny our emotions is really not okay, because our emotions do matter. How we are feeling at any given moment matters, because it's happening within us, and therefore it's valid, it's justified. It does matter if we are constantly living in survival mode, chasing time or money or goals and not making time for ourselves and our own self-care. And then as a result, we get sick, feeling burnt out or run down. And so it does matter that we are living like this, that we've been conditioned to conform and perform in these circumstances and in survival mode, living in fear. It does matter that that is the way in which we've been living. I also recognize that it does matter if we are living disassociated and disconnected from ourselves, from our emotional, somatic, and transpersonal intelligence. It does matter if we are frantically trying to maintain the illusion of control, safety, security, and stability that we've built around ourselves so that we can feel safe, that we can feel in control. I recognized how it does matter when we keep repeating the same unhealthy patterns, repeating the same limiting beliefs and behaviors over and over again that prevent us from experiencing more of our power and our potential to lead, love, and relate in a more authentic, heart-centered way. It does matter when we constantly put the needs and the dreams and the desires of others before our own, sacrificing ourselves, our power, and our voices over and over again, overriding our intuition and carrying on regardless. It does matter when we have allowed others to overstep the mark, to push us beyond the limit, to walk all over our boundaries, because in that moment, we have allowed them to. We've allowed them to disrespect our boundaries because we have disrespected our boundaries. We've not listened to our boundaries. And therefore, if we are not listening to our boundaries, it does matter. All of it matters because fundamentally we matter. And so how do we change this narrative and therefore our relationship with our self-worth? As always, with shadow work, one of the most fundamental tools is attention and awareness. If we have no attention or awareness to what we are saying or to what we are manifesting and how we are feeling, then obviously nothing is going to change. And so really being attentive, paying attention to when we actually say these words to ourselves or when we say them to others can really help us to change that story. Can help to empower us rather than disempower us and start to reinforce a healthy sense of self-worth and value. And so I invite you to reflect upon when you've actually spoken these words, when you have spoken these words to yourself or to somebody else. And in that moment, recognizing what exactly is it that you're sacrificing. What need are you saying to yourself it doesn't matter? What boundary are you saying to yourself doesn't matter? And so the more that we can bring attention and awareness into our communication and how we're communicating with the self, that can then change to how we then communicate with others. But we do need attention and awareness. And so we need to catch ourselves before we say the words. It's almost as if they are on the tip of our tongue and we recognize what we're about to voice in that moment. But instead of voicing those words, we actually take a step back. We be present with the power of those words. We breathe into them. We hold them. And in that moment, we can make a conscious choice. We can say the words because that is the pattern, or we can choose to reverse them and affirm to the self that it matters. And whatever need or boundary we were about to disregard, disrespect, or dishonor can change the whole energy of it by saying it does matter. Because we matter. Because our worth and our value matters. Because we as human beings, as women, matter. And therefore, we must change that blueprint moving forward. Because fundamentally, this is what we're teaching our children, that we don't matter. Just like our mothers taught us that it doesn't matter. We don't want to be repeating that. We don't want to be sending that down through the generations. It needs to end, and it needs to end with us. And so, ladies, I invite you to pay attention to these 3 most powerful yet toxic words. Pay attention to when they come up. Pay attention to when they wish to be spoken. And pay attention to how they affect your sense of self-worth, self-value, and well-being. Are you ready to break free from the ghosts of your past, to live with more freedom and a clear sense of purpose and inner confidence? If so, book a chat with me to explore the potent magic of one-to-one shadow walking sessions at thefeminineprinciple.com.